Hello, and what's up? We're not really doing a reaction today. Just kind of want to talk a little bit about this week's theme. I had a couple of people ask me, "Hey, you know, what's your idea of a journey? What song would you submit for this theme?" And yeah, it took me a while. So I kind of wanted to talk about what some of my biases were going into this because I had mentioned that quite a bit of the selection of this past week I didn't think really fit the theme. They didn't feel like journeys to me. And, as I mentioned, it's a subjective thing, whether a work of art feels journeyous or not. And I decided to take some time to explore my biases and figure out what they were and what I would want out of a song if I specifically wanted it to take me on a journey. And I think I came up with three criteria that honestly feels like I'm fitting it too much into a box of a very specific type of journey, but this is where my mind was at subconsciously during this week. It must be fluid. The ideas flow between each other, and there's a natural movement from one idea to the next. On the concept of ideas, it's got to be contrasty. If every idea feels the same, it doesn't feel like we've gone anywhere. And finally, not so much of a requirement, but I think growth and movement are really important as well. We can change styles, but if it doesn't feel like we are evolving the music at all, aside from, well, we have a loud section and a soft section, that's contrast, but do we have enough contrast across the entire track to make it feel like we have consistently gone new places? And I think that's the overall thing is it's a consistency of movement into new ideas where the ideas flow well into each other. It's very specific, right? And that's where my mind was at this week. I had a very specific idea of what we would end up listening to. And you notice time wasn't a part of that. I don't think a journey needs to be a 20-minute epic in order to be a journey. But it does help, I think. If nothing else, it allows the song to have more time to explore things in order to achieve that wider variety of contrast. It's more difficult to fit five fresh sounds into a 2-minute song than it is to put five fresh sounds in a 10-minute song. And so that made me think, okay, if these are my biases, what would fit into that? What would I pick for this theme? And yeah, it's Renaissance style classical. I mean, the genre as a whole just kind of works well within that bounds. It's its bread and butter. Is writing songs that are contrasty and flowy and evoking specific imagery. And as such, I began to think about what Renaissance track I might specifically pick for this. And the one that comes immediately to mind is one we've done on the channel. I think it's the most recent time that I have said, hey, this song really took me on a journey. And it was Bedid Expentena's Voltava. Um, I'll put the thingy there to be like, hey, go check this out. I described it while listening as a track that I imagined it as a leaf falling from a tree and on its descent getting picked up by the wind and carried through a forest, able to see all sorts of imagery and vistas around this nature. I don't remember how long the song was. I know the reaction was close to an hour. I had a lot to say about it, and honestly, I think it's one of my best analyses as well, which tend to come through when I have a strong connection to a piece and simultaneously quite enjoyed it on a casual level. Those two things typically bring about some of my best work, I think. But yes, certainly. All the ideas flowed together well. It felt like a natural little short story being told through the musical language. And we transitioned between ideas and ended up somewhere that we weren't. It fits, it fits all the criteria I had. But since coming to this conclusion about my biases, I've been trying to break away from them. I don't necessarily want to say that, my idea of a journey would have to be a classical piece. And I don't think that classical is the only place to find this combination of specific ideas. It's just that it's most, as far as my knowledge goes, it's most collectively captured there. I'm sure there are progressive rock or metal tracks, or maybe even stuff in the more progressive pop realm or hip hop, even, that does some of this. I just can't think of it. Maybe I have been exposed to it and just, I listen to so much music, I forget half of it most of the time. Um, and there's a lot of music I haven't listened to, but that's where my brain immediately goes to. I'm like, well, that shouldn't be it. Other genres should be able to do it as well. So I tried to focus and force myself if I had to pick a rock track because that's, it's what the channel's based around. We explore other things. There's a wide variety of tastes on the channel, but the connective tissue for most of us is rock and metal. And honestly, I've got two, maybe, and one of them feels weird. Periphery's Reptile comes to mind. I think it's their longest song to date, sitting at like 17 or 18 minutes, and it goes through some really heavy metal, some genty stuff, some pop rock, electronica, and it's all done in a cinematic style. There's highs and lows, and it tells a pretty cohesive story over a large gap of time. It should fit, and yet for some reason I would not classify it as going on a journey, and I don't quite know why. Maybe it's a bit more of the disconnectedness between all the different styles, unlike Renaissance classical, where the instrumentation doesn't really change. We might go into different types of composition and different modes and stuff. The overall instrumental use is going to be similar from section to section. It's going to create a cohesiveness that, well, Periphery wasn't adhering to. They had virtual instruments they could bring in at any time and change things up, and some sections are primarily, almost entirely, electronic. That might be it. And honestly, that shouldn't be a point of contention where I say, oh, this is no longer a journey because it feels disconnected at times. Because honestly, I've watched plenty of films and read books that feel disconnected because there's these things called time skips that are very natural for storytelling that for some reason I can't wedge into this idea of musical journey. And that's something I need to reconcile with. The other also comes from a progressive metal band, which I'm sure most people would not be surprised. It's Human Abstract. It's the track Antebellum. It is written in the sonnet format, and it is a majestic track with so many great ideas. However, if I remember correctly, it ends. I should have listened to it again before making this video. It ends in a chorus, but I think it's a variation on the chorus with a new perspective on the same words, replacing words to showcase a change of mind, basically. Um, so it is a bit more cyclical, doesn't feel too journey-rific in that manner, but it is very linear format as the sonnet format tends to be. And we have lots of rises and falls, lots of contrast, changing sections, multitude of concepts, even though they all sit within a metal sound. Yeah, and see, I kind of make caveats for them. Neither one of them really feel journeyful. I keep making up new words to turn journey into an adjective, and none of them are sticking. I don't know. I think if I was put on a spot, those would be the two tracks I pick inside of rock and metal, but I wouldn't be 100% on board with them as I am with the Smetana pick that I had earlier, Voltava, which I think perfectly encapsulates my idea of what a journey-rific song is. I don't know. Sound off in the comments, I guess. Let me know what your criteria is for a song to have taken you on a journey. Is there a way to boil it down to a scientific set of ideas, or is it one of those things that you know it when you hear it? I know I tend to think too deeply about music sometimes and coming up with this criteria instead of just saying, yeah, this song is, sounds like a journey to me, is very much up my alley. And I don't know how many other people are going to be able to scientifically allocate what specifically makes a song a journey for them, but I'm curious if anybody else has thought about it or if this has caused you to think about it right now and maybe see what your perspectives are on it. All right. Stick around. Well, don't stick around. It's like 7 hours away. We have our album review coming in later today, which I'm pretty excited about. I had a blast with the music. And remember, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a live stream, and they are open to the public now. All right. Thanks for listening. I look forward to the comments, and I'll see you guys later.